good day, one and all, friends and foes. You know who you are. I'm Cal, and this is Missing Links Movie Podcast, your weekly reel of the latest in film news. We're going to spend some time going over our top billed articles, new trailers and release dates, and what's opening in theaters this week. So, whether you're a fan of Attack of the Clones, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, Attack the Block, this is the podcast for you. The podcast is currently on Spotify and YouTube on the channel Missing Link Movies. I initially planned to put it on Apple as well, Apple Podcasts. I just need to get around to that. I just need to do it. This podcast, because it is just going over film news, and less so like long form video essay type content, this is just off the cuff, improvised, unedited, just saying what's on my mind. And that's the way it is. So without further ado, let's introduce our top build story this week. There's a lot I had to leave out. I had a hard time deciding which ones to cover because there was just a lot of news this week, both in the top build stories and the stuff I wanted to talk about in the grab bag, because I wanted to do a little bit of a longer discussion on the grab bag side. But in addition to the fact, I also thought about, what I want to do with the naming of the podcast, or the brand, I guess. Not that I really have a brand to speak of yet, but just thinking about possibly, changing up the name. I want to for sure change up the name and sort of the branding I've got right now, because it's kind of not the greatest, but that's okay. So I said we would introduce our top build stories, so let's do that now. Starting with the box office report, per the norm. Last weekend, we had Argyle maintain its number one spot at only a gross of $6 million, which is a minus 64.2% drop. Very, very large drop. But again, just as it debuted under expectations, despite it maintaining its number one spot, it's still vastly underperforming. Number two, we had Lisa Frankenstein, which is a new movie that I've mentioned on the podcast here and there. Number three, The Beekeeper. Number four, Wonka. Number five, Migration. Number six, The Chosen, Season 4, Episodes 1 to 3. Number seven, Anyone But You. Number eight, Mean Girls. Number nine, American Fiction. And number 10, Poor Things. Awesome. Moving right along. I don't have a lot of, I just have things I'd rather talk about at length more than the charts. All right, let's see. Oh, short, quick correction. So seriously, either as I was recording the podcast last week or right after, minutes after, one of the stories I talked about was David Leitch possibly directing the next Jurassic World movie. Apparently he's out. He's dropped out. So I guess it's a correction of sorts, because that came out in the trades very, very quickly, or even at the same time that I was recording the podcast last week, talking about him being in talks for it. So just a little thing there. New Predator movie in the works with Dan Trachtenberg directing. This comes from Boris Kitt at The Hollywood Reporter. Trachtenberg, the article says, Trachtenberg, who earned an Emmy nomination for his 2022 Predator movie Prey, is returning to the sci-fi action horror franchise to make a new installment. Titled Badlands, the new Predator feature is not a sequel to Prey, which was set in 1719 and centered on a young Comanche woman forced to fight for survival against the intergalactic hunters, but rather a brand new story. Plot details are being kept secret, but this one is said to be set sometime in the future. Like Prey, however, it too will feature a female lead. Badlands isn't the only Predator project in the works. The surprise success of Prey crossed from critics to audience and reinvigorated the franchise. Now the studio is planning a host of Predator projects with Trachtenberg at the center. Prey proved to be a massive streaming success when it debuted on Hulu, setting records for the summer, but originally the movie was made with a theatrical release in mind. That changed, however, during 20th Century's sale to Disney. According to sources, the Fox-owned studio had an output deal with HBO, which meant that Prey would have gone to a rival studio after its theatrical release. With strengthening streaming services a top priority in those intense days of the streaming wars, and with the pandemic still hampering box office, new owner Disney believed releasing the movie on Hulu was the best option. Trachtenberg caught the attention of Hollywood with 2016's 10 Cloverfield Lane, a tense and claustrophobic entry, and J.J. Abrams produced Cloverfield movie series. All right, so yeah, I heard a lot about Prey when it came out. I've been meaning to get to it. I haven't been subscribed to Hulu in a while, but I've heard great things about it. I'm not like a super fan of the Predators franchise. I've only ever seen the first one once, and that was pretty recently. And it was sort of because I had heard how good Prey was. I thought, oh, maybe I ought to check into those movies. And as I understand it, you don't necessarily have to have seen other Predator movies to enjoy Prey, because Prey technically is it takes place first chronologically. You know, it takes place in 1719, whereas the other Predators take place from the 1980s on. So, but I mean, the first Predator was good. Yeah, I liked it. Classic 80s action movie. But Prey, from the trailers I saw and things, it took a very different approach where it was less schlocky action and more, I don't want to say slow burn, but more just almost like shot in a way that was less action and almost more, I don't even want to say drama, but just in a more like, in a way that almost focused more on the nature, the environment, a more chill, like a more chill way of shooting an action movie, like featuring something like the Predator. So that's cool. So Dan Trachtenberg moving up, with a new Predator movie. Let's hope it releases in theaters this time, because as I hear, Prey, should have released in theaters, but Disney put the kibosh on that. Next up, Travis Knight circling new Masters of the Universe movie. This comes from Deadline's Justin Kroll. The long in development Masters of the Universe reimagining from Mattel looks to be gaining some momentum, as sources tell Deadline that Travis Knight is in the final negotiations to direct. Knight is the president and CEO of Laika, the Portland-based animation studio best known for hit stop-motion films including Coraline and Missing Link. Although his focus has still been on animation in recent years, Knight made his first big splash in the live-action arena with the Transformers spin-off Bumblebee in 2018. The pick not only received some of the best reviews for the franchise, but Knight delivered a film under the typical budget of a Transformers pick, something every major studio took notice of. Given his unique skill set of working in both the animation and live-action worlds, studio execs have viewed him as a top Masters of the Universe choice for some time, with sources saying Knight was the only director to give an in-person presentation that happened last week and ultimately sealed the deal on him getting the offer. So if you're unfamiliar with the Masters of the Universe franchise, the article goes on to say, the film is based on the popular 1980s cartoon series, and this iteration revolves around 9-year-old Prince Adam crashing to Earth in a spaceship and being separated from his magical sword, the only link to his home on Eternia. After tracking it down almost 2 decades later, Adam is whisked back across space to defend his home planet against the evil forces of Skeletor. But to defeat such a powerful villain, Prince Adam first will need to uncover the mysteries of his past and become He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Masters of the Universe, I don't want to say a niche, but not necessarily the most popular 80s franchise going on right now compared to like Ninja Turtles or Transformers. But seeing as Travis Knight had a history of adapting at least one popular 80s franchise, Masters of the Universe is still kind of in that realm of something that has continued to stick around. They tried G.I. Joe, that didn't work out too well. Travis Knight, though, is very capable. I mean, his stop motion films at Laika are excellent movies. I would say Bumblebee is probably his weakest movie, But that's not saying much because it was even his weakest movie with Bumblebee. That was still far and away better than any of the other Transformers movies. So I think it should be really cool. I wonder if he'll plan on doing what sort of style he'll go with it, as you know, with Laika, those being more whimsical and kid friendly, or if it'll lean a little more for the millennial generation, being a little more mature and serious. I'm interested to see. So, but that's cool. All right, next up comes from Deadline's Mike Fleming Jr. Warner Bros. Lands Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan package following heated bidding war. In a highly competitive situation, Warner Bros. Has landed a deal with writer, director, producer Ryan Coogler and star Michael B. Jordan for an untitled new movie based on an original script by Coogler. The project reunites Coogler and Jordan, who have collaborated on the Creed and Black Panther franchises and made their mark together on the acclaimed Fruitvale Station. It also marks the second project of Coogler and Jordan's that Warner Bros. Film Group co-chairs and CEOs Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy have championed, following their greenlight of Creed 3 during their time at MGM. Not much is known about the film Not much is known about the film other that it is a period. That sentence doesn't quite work. Other than that, it's a period genre pick and production is expected to start in April. Not much to go off of there because it's there's not much to say other than cool, they're doing it. Interesting that Warner Bros. Is doing it. I mean, picking up this project. Hopefully that works out for them and they don't get it shelved. I mean, even with all the drama of Warner Bros. And their treatment of movies like Batgirl, the Scooby-Doo movie, and Wile or Coyote versus Acme, Warner Bros. Is still going to be making pictures. That's, you know, you're not just going to have one of the oldest and most prestigious film studios just shuttering overnight because they decide not to make any more movies, or because filmmakers don't want to work with them anymore. Those have been very isolated cases. We're still going to see plenty of movies. However, so this is something to look forward to with where this goes, what they do. A very prominent team, I think, in the industry right now with Coogler and MBJ, as they call him. All right, let's see. New Karate Kid. They cast for the next Karate Kid movie. I had the article pulled up, but I think I accidentally closed out the tab. This comes from Variety's Catsy Steven. New Karate Kid movie casts American-born Chinese star Ben Wong in title role. Ben Wong is the next Karate Kid. Wong, who previously starred opposite Michelle Yeoh in the Disney Plus series American-born Chinese, landed the sought-after role after a worldwide search that saw thousands of young actors from around the globe vie for the title role in Sony's new Karate Kid movie, which unites Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio. Per Studio Insiders, Wong delivered a standout audition performance that demonstrated his deep connection to the character. The actor, who is also fluent in Mandarin, is skilled across many forms of martial arts, including karate, Wing Chun / Kung Fu, Gumdo, Kempo, and Taekwondo. Plot details are still under wraps for the new movie, but Macchio will once again play Daniel LaRusso from the original Karate Kid film trilogy and the series Cobra Kai, while Chan will return to the role of Mr. Han, a kung fu master from the 2010 remake movie starring Jaden Smith. The film will be directed by Jonathan Entwistle, the creator and director of Netflix's I Am Not Okay With This and The End of the Effing World. Peter Rabbit scribe Rob Lieber will pen the screenplay, and Karen Roosevelt will produce. Sony Pictures will release the film in theaters on December 13th, 2024. Wow. Okay. That is soon. So they just now cast the lead, and they're going to shoot, post, edit. I'm not sure if that's the right order. But they're going to wrap this film up before December. All right. Good luck to them. We'll see. But that's awesome. Ben Wong, I hope he becomes kind of an up-and-comer. I watched the first few episodes of American Born Chinese, meant to get to the rest of it, but my Disney Plus subscription lapsed. But when I resubscribe, I hope to finish it out. He plays the lead in this show. I don't want to belabor too much on the plot details of American Born Chinese, but it's pretty solid. And Ben Wong, it's a very martial arts heavy show, and really flew under the radar for I think a lot of people. It did not get promoted all that much that I saw, but surprisingly pretty good. And I would recommend it if you're interested in martial arts, particularly if you're interested in Chinese mythology, or the experience of an American-born Chinese teenager. Pretty cool show. Pretty cool to see that kind of show on Disney's streaming service. But good luck to him in being Karate Kid. It's interesting because they had announced the casting as just like, if you are this age and you are good at martial arts, send in your auditions. So, I mean, it might have been pointless to think that the role would go to, someone with not a lot of acting experience, but so it is kind of it still is sort of a surprise that they just ended up going with a kid who, could have auditioned if they had done closed auditions, but that's still cool. And I actually am looking forward to a new Karate Kid movie with him and Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. I personally, that's just me. And then our last one comes from Deadline's Justin Kroll again. Ridley Scott to direct Paramount's Bee Gees movie from GK Film. With its movie Bob Marley, One Love now in theaters, Paramount Picture is moving fast on another high-profile biopic on a popular music group and looks to have found an A-list director to lead the project. While the deal isn't done, sources tell Deadline that Ridley Scott is in negotiations to direct the studio's untitled Bee Gees movie. Scott will produce. Paramount is distributing the film worldwide. Let's see. Yeah, and then the article goes on to talk about what he's been up to recently. But the question I pose to you, dear listeners, what hasn't Ridley Scott been up to recently? He just does not slow down. It's crazy. It's insane. Just over the last couple of years, he's come out with 3 films: Napoleon, The Last Duel, House of Gucci. This guy just cannot stop. But even if not all of his films are certifiable hits, there's he's still got classics in his filmography. Last Duel was pretty recent. Last Duel was really, really good. I've heard mixed things about Napoleon. I have yet to see that. I heard it's coming to Apple TV Plus on March 1st. I will be there very soon after that debut to watch it and see for myself. But interesting subject for him to tackle. He's no stranger at biopics. Again, Last Duel, House of Gucci, Napoleon, all of those based on historical figures. This is a little more contemporary. I'm not sure House of Gucci. I'm not sure when that took place. Obviously, that's about a fashion, part of the fashion world. This is about the music industry, but should be cool. And just yet another project for Ridley Scott to just crank out like nothing else. And I guess I should also mention that he's got, despite the fact that he just came out with Napoleon, we've got his Gladiator sequel coming out on November 22nd, which the article mentions stars Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, and Pedro Pascal. He is a workhorse. That is awesome. So that is our top build stories. Now we're going to go into our grab bag section where I, talk about things either on my mind or interesting things that are going on that aren't necessarily part of the top build, biggest news of the week. for what I'm going, at least for the sort of thing I'm going for with this podcast. That being said, one of the things I want to talk about is just some Marvel stuff, which for some people might be the biggest news of the week, but not necessarily for this podcast. That being said, Marvel Studios announces its Fantastic Four cast. This has been fun because the cast of the Fantastic Four has been like one of the most heavily rumored things I have seen in a while. I mean, I've been following the MCU pretty closely since Avengers in 2012, and there's always rumors around about casting, about what Marvel's coming out with next, their projects, but Fantastic Four, the cast, has just been one of the most interesting journeys to follow of, actors supposedly being in, being out, being cast, being, not actually cast, having to drop out because of schedule. It's just been like crazy. So all of that aside, rather nonchalantly, Marvel Studios just tweeted out some art for Valentine's Day depicting and announcing the cast for the Fantastic Four movie. And here's who we've got. So we've got Pedro Pascal playing Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards. That was kind of already known. That had been reported by some reliable trades. I think Deadline is the one who broke the story that Pedro Pascal had landed that role. We've got Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach as, I hope that's how you pronounce his last name, but I actually am now realizing Ebon Moss-Bachrach or Bachrach or Bachrach is Ben Grimm, the Thing, which is an awesome cast, I have to say. Pedro Pascal, like, not the most comic accurate, I don't think they're necessarily going to go for the most comic accurate depiction of Reed Richards with Pedro Pascal, but I mean, come on, Pedro Pascal is still super solid. I'm sure he'll bring it. I'm sure it'll still be great. I'm sure it will be fine. It will be just fine. We'll be okay. Despite the fact that he does not physically appear similar to Reed Richards from the comics, as valid as a criticism some people to think that is. All right. That being said, I've said that like 5 times today. Sorry. Vanessa Kirby, she was in Mission Impossible 6. She was in Fallout. That's 6, right? Yeah. And she was great in that. Joseph Quinn, you may remember him as fan favorite character Eddie Munson from Stranger Things Season 4. He was like the Dungeons & Dragons rocker dude. And then Ebon Moss-Bachrach playing the Thing. I have been vouching for this guy forever. I first saw him way back in the TV show Fringe. He was in one episode, just kind of playing a one-off character. But I remember thinking, man, this guy surprisingly, like, he's bringing it for someone who's only in one episode. Like, just as, he wasn't necessarily a guest star. He was just sort of playing a small role in this one episode. And I remember just thinking how good he was, how surprisingly good he was. And now he's gone to, he was in Star Wars' Andor a couple years ago. He was in the Punisher Netflix series, another Marvel Comics adaptation. And most recently, he's been in The Bear, which he has been getting a lot of recognition for, deservedly so. I haven't caught up with The Bear, but I watched the first season and I think maybe about half almost through the second season. And he is like one of, if not the best character on that show. And so to see him now in a, big time main MCU movie is just awesome to see. Really cool. He's probably the member of the cast that I'm really excited to see. Just because I've been vouching for it for a long time. So Fantastic Four hits theaters on July 25th, 2025. So it's still a ways away. And with all the shuffling that Netflix has been doing, not Netflix, Marvel Studios. In fact, Fantastic Four, I believe, was most recently, after several moves, was planned for May 2025. It is now moved to July. We'll see if it moves some more. But overall, I'm looking forward to it. It seems to be they're going for a 60s aesthetic, and I've talked long enough about this, so moving on. The other small Marvel thing I wanted to mention is that we got a trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine during the Super Bowl, and Deadline's Anthony D'Alessandro reports that 24 hours after airing, it was seen by 365 million online, making it the most viewed trailer of all time. Beats the 24-hour viewership total for Spider-Man No Way Home, which was seen by 355 million. A lot of hype for that. More hype than I thought. With all the talk of superhero fatigue, we're tired of the MCU. No one, Disney just needs to take a break and not come out with any Marvel movies for a couple years. I guess people are really, really hyped for Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm excited. I'm more so for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine than anything. But for it to really have that much of a general audience impression, more than I was expecting, with Deadpool being more adult-oriented superhero. The first two Deadpools were rated R, very, very high-grossing rated R movies. I'm still, nonetheless, kind of surprised that Deadpool and Wolverine is now has the record for most viewed trailer in 24 hours. But I am curious how they measure that. Because if you're including people scrolling past the trailer on Twitter or something like that, that counts as a view? I'm not sure about that. But that's okay. We can all be excited for that. And so I guess this other part is tangentially related to Marvel, but it more so is about a wider discussion. So the Hollywood Reporter came out, written by Richard Newby, came out with an article on Hollywood Reporter. Kind of more of an op-ed, but the headline is, "What did Dakota Johnson actually say?" And the article talks about the interesting ways in which Dakota Johnson, backing up, is starring in a new Sony Marvel movie called Madam Web. And it's being absolutely reamed by critics and audiences. To no surprise, the trailers, obviously made it seem like it was gonna flop. The trailers did not leave a good impression. But the article goes into an interesting exploration of how the internet, and particularly social media and journalists, like personalities on social media that are associated with film, have sort of I don't want to say twisted, but engaged with Dakota Johnson's press for the movie in a way that makes it appear as if Dakota Johnson hates the movie, did not want to work on it, was tricked into working on it, actually changed agencies because she was so unhappy with her work on it, with the movie itself, and how that is reflective of just a wider pattern that we're seeing of how social media, how film outlets engage with films that for some reason people want to hate. And it's not necessarily a fluff piece for Madam Web. It's not out there to tell everyone that, wait a minute, Madam Web's actually a really good movie. The article is just going into this interesting routine that we're starting to see with a lot of movies. Let's see. And there's a particular part I wanted to take a look at. Let me just find it real quick. Because it also mentions Batman v Superman, Don't Worry Darling, even Bruce Willis with his health concerns that people didn't know about, and therefore took it to mean that Bruce Willis was a sellout and, washed up, when really he was dealing with these health concerns and wanted to make sure his family was provided for, but it's very crazy. Yes, here we go. All right. So the paragraph says, Richard Newby, from cherry picking a standard unsmiling pose on the red carpet at the premiere and claiming she's being held hostage, to taking her admission to the rap about the script, quote, there were drastic changes and I can't even tell you what they were, unquote, as yet more evidence she hated the movie, it has become an odd case of projection that feels performative and tied with our premature desire to categorize everything as the worst or best thing ever. It's no surprise that this also reflects where we are politically as well, and the way we engage with media is reflective of how we engage with society. Misinformation, conspiracies, misquotes, and binary extremes are all the rage because that's where the money is, in both political coverage and entertainment journalism. There's this pervading feeling that has crept into so much film coverage, Reddit boards, and film Twitter that, quote, if we can sustain the idea that the creator or actor hates the film, then we can force it into a reality and thus absolve ourselves of the responsibility of earnestly saying anything meaningful, good, bad, or in between in a culture that already loves extremes, especially if they're negative. And then in the concluding paragraph, let's see. Is Madame Web a silly film to pursue this topic with? Perhaps, but that's the point. The way we write about what might be labeled as inconsequential is consequential to the larger efforts of becoming better in how we can discuss films and how we can encourage those outside our profession to do the same. Let's see. Personally, the consensus on Madame Web matters about as much to me as the consensus on the holdovers, which is to say not at all. We like what we like and don't what we don't. But regardless of whether it's a film we dislike or one we love, we not only have the power but responsibility to cut through the web of lies and engage with the film as the film, and not as a proxy for clickbait, a few thousand likes, or a runaway narrative that exists outside the boundaries of the screen. And this is a very well-timed article because this is something that has been on my mind a lot. So again, I'll try to link the article in the description. Headline again: What did Dakota Johnson actually say? From The Hollywood Reporter's Richard Newby. I'm just a really big fan of this piece because it just is totally truthful to the way that entertainment journalism on social media has devolved and deconstructed into this idea that films can either be, like the article says, the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. Because that makes it easy. It makes it easy for clicks. It makes it easy for engagement. There's no, when you can get maximum algorithmic exposure by just being on one side of the spectrum or the other, then what need is there for nuance? And so what happens is when entertainment journalism and, the biggest names on social media are putting out those kind of headlines, making it seem as if Dakota Johnson hates Madame Web, when really she's just kind of indifferent and is consistent with the way that she just kind of appears always in the press. The way those, the way these things are just represented in a way to generate clicks and engagement is a huge disservice to media literacy and the ability to engage with these things on a somewhat intelligent level. We don't all have to be, we don't have to be career journalists, film journalists to respond and engage with a film on its own terms. That's like, it's absurd, that we should have to reduce our opinions and our takes on these things, because we don't want to like it or something like that. I'm not as eloquent as Richard Newby is in this article, which is why I recommend reading it. Because again, it's not just about Madame Web. It's not just about the strictly the way these things are twisted in entertainment journalism, but it's how it reflects on us as a society in engaging with art is like we're so many of us are like skipping out on the requirement of having some sort of like meaningful dialogue with what we engage with. And it's really sad, because I would like for us all to take things on their own terms. That's a reason that Roger Ebert was like such a great critic. Was he didn't let his preconceptions about a film color what he felt about it as he was watching it. He just went in, met with the film on its own terms, and he was really great at doing that. Which is why I love, despite the fact that it's passed now for a few years. I love to, for movies I watch that came out when he was around, I like to go back and read his articles or his reviews, because he just does such a great job engaging with them. And one of the reasons it's been this sort of concept has been on my mind recently is with the new Netflix adaptation of The Last Airbender. Do I expect it will be the best thing ever? No. Do I expect it will be the worst thing ever? No. But again, that's reflective of the problem that we're seeing here is, similar to Madam Web, you're seeing what we've been seeing a lot with The Last Airbender is people taking isolated quotes from actors and from the showrunners, very segmented things that they say, taking them out of context and presenting them in a way that that makes it appear that The Last Airbender is just going to be an absolute train wreck, because that is what gains clicks. That is, people want to feel, again, I'm not super eloquent. This is the, I guess, downside of having a improvised, unedited podcast is I can't write a script about this. But people love the original adaptation of Avatar, including me. And we already got one bad live action adaptation. And it was really bad, to be fair. It may be the worst thing that many people have seen. But, so like the whole spectrum thing might be true. But because people have already been burned once, for whatever reason, we thrive on that negativity. And we want to believe that nothing could ever come close to the original animated show. And there's nothing, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but I think it becomes a problem when we start to prejudge things that nobody's even seen. I mean, The Last Airbender only just came out, it doesn't come out for another week, but the first episode had a premiere in Los Angeles last night. And while first reactions to these premieres are generally, positive, it's like you can't help it. Even the reactions to The Last Airbender premiere, just the first episode, were positive. And, not necessarily saying it's the worst thing ever, but like, I just feel like so many people out there, and even I at first, once the original creators of Avatar left the Netflix adaptation, I thought, oh, okay, well, that's it. This is not going to be good. And so even I'm guilty in a sense of prejudging stuff like this. But as things have come out, I've followed almost every bit of news on this new live action Avatar. And over time, it started to win me over. I've started to feel, okay, the people behind this have some real passion for this. The cast have passion. The showrunners have passion. They're doing things right behind the scenes. But what the general audience sees is the algorithmically inclined stuff, which is the stuff that could be misconstrued to absolutely dump on this adaptation. Because for whatever reason, that is what we thrive on. That's what we click on. That's what we engage with. In a sense of what we choose to look at on social media, to the extent that now I feel like there's just a lot of unjustified unjustified alimony. Wait, no, that's not the word. Not alimony. Crap. Just malice. Like, there's just a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate going towards this adaptation, despite the fact that it's not even really out yet, because of, for whatever reason, we want to feel justified in being doubtful. It's like we don't think there can be a good live action adaptation of Avatar, and we want to feel justified in that. So we take quotes that we can misconstrue. We take very isolated things that people say and present it in a way that's like that we can feel good about ourselves. And again, this live action Avatar might not be great. It might not be the worst thing ever, but all I ask is that with these things, we just engage with the project itself. Like other examples, besides Madam Web, almost every MCU project that comes out, you're just getting the most cherry-picked things that will generate the most clicks and engagement, and have those be representative of the thing as a whole. One of the worst examples is She-Hulk. She-Hulk, very competent show. Not the best MCU project by any stretch. I thought some of the actors, some of the cast were very good, particularly the lead. The writing wasn't great. The CGI most of the time was quite good. It could be a bit iffy at times. Overall, I think a sort of a fresh take on the Marvel formula. It wasn't the standard, stop the blue beam shooting into the sky. The main villain wasn't a world-ending threat. So it was something new, something fresh. But there was just isolated parts, with I'm thinking about as absurd as it is, like the She-Hulk. The little clip of She-Hulk twerking with Megan Thee Stallion that happens in the post-credit scene of one episode is just was just taken, spread everywhere, and, was the epitome of this is the modern MCU. This is what we stoop to, with Marvel. And I guess I'm more of a Marvel fan that I might be willing to admit, because I keep coming back to it today in this podcast. But, It just is totally, I think, in line. I don't think it's mentioned in this article, but I would add that as another example of just where people would not watch the show and engage with it on its own terms and come up with, and just have any kind of nuance with it. The reviews themselves had nuance, sure, but in terms of public perception, it just became the worst show ever made. Or thinking Velma, that animated show that came out on HBO Max. I haven't seen it. I probably will not see it. But people took the fact that some of the Scooby-Doo characters were, race swapped. Some of the jokes in the trailers weren't funny, and therefore declared that TV show was not that TV show was one of the worst of all time. So just again, I feel like I'm starting to be redundant and just kind of repeating my point. But with this rant, I just want to say that, let's all take a moment. When we hear something about a project, when we see something on social media, when we see a post on Facebook or Twitter or Reddit, that makes us, that kind of gives a little rise in us. If it's, some people might not care. People may just keep scrolling. But if it's maybe a project or movie or TV show that you've heard about, you might be interested in, or expecting to be bad, and see something that justifies or validates that, positive or negative, take a moment and just consider that entertainment journalism, in a large sense, not in a complete sense, but in a large sense, has become a farm for clicks and engagement, because that is the way society is right now. So if you're interested in something, if you think you might be interested in something, check it out for yourself. Or read some reviews that are a little more in depth than the Rotten Tomatoes percentage score or the Metacritic score. Actually take a moment to look and read through some things. You know, I know that's work. That's work. Oh, why can't we just look, you know, why can't we just take that headline and face value and write something off as the worst thing ever? Because it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming to keep up with all the movies and TV shows. And so we don't want to feel like we have to watch everything. And so it's easier to just write off a lot of these things by playing into the headlines and the out of context quotes and clips and things like that, and just believe those are reflective of each project as a whole, so that we don't have to engage with it, so that we can just have a moment of peace. But just like take a chance on something once in a while. Go see Madam Web. No, actually, that might be going too far. But let's all just chill. Let's all just chill, and like this article says, we not only have the power but responsibility to cut through the web of lies and engage with the film as the film and not as a proxy for clickbait, a few thousand likes, or a runaway narrative that exists outside the boundaries of the screen. That's all I ask. Rant over. Stepping down from my soapbox. Thank you for coming to my impromptu TED Talk. All right. And we're not done, but we're almost there. Real quick, we got a lot of new trailers and release dates from the Super Bowl. You know, had a lot of movie trailers debut. I already mentioned Deadpool and Wolverine. Very good trailer. Very excited for that. That's coming out July 26th, 2024. We got a new trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, another movie I'm very, very excited for. That's coming out. Farts. I forgot to write down the date, but that's coming out either March or May, one of those M months. Godzilla vs. V Kong, New Empire, got a new trailer for that. Not as part of the Super Bowl, but a couple days ago. That's coming out March, I believe. That also may be another M months. I think Godzilla v Kong and Kingdom of the Apes might both be coming out in March. I hope so, but Kingdom of the Apes might be May. We got a trailer for Twisters, a reboot sequel of like the 90s movie, I think. That's coming out July 19th, 2024. We got I think it's like a rom-com action movie, The Fall Guy, with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. That's coming out May 3rd, 2024. I might give that a chance, because I think Ryan Gosling has excellent comedic timing, and I think Emily Blunt's very capable. Wicked. The musical, which is, I feel like this movie has been in the works forever. I feel like this movie has been in development hell for a decade plus, but it's finally coming, starring Ariana DeBose. I can't remember her first name, and Ariana Grande. That's coming November 27th, 2024, and I believe that's actually a 2-part film, so I think this is only part 1. And then finally, just the last couple of days, we got a trailer for Sasquatch Sunset, coming April 19th, 2024. It's a rather low-budget film, but I wanted to include it here. It's an indie film, I believe, from Bleecker Street Studios or production company or whatever. There was some talk. There's a lot of talk about it at Sundance, and which is now reminding me I wanted to do like some sort of Sundance Film Festival recap or roundup or something, so maybe I'll do that next week. But Sasquatch Sunset got a lot of talk at Sundance. Stars Riley Koch. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. Jesse Eisenberg. It's about a family of Sasquatches that are just out in the wilderness. It looks really interesting, but what really caught my eye is from the writers and directors of Kumiko the Treasure Hunter, which is kind of, I think, possibly one of the first indie movies I ever saw when I was in high school, and thought it was like really not necessarily my favorite movie ever, but like something really interesting, and like kind of opened my eyes to independent filmmaking and how unique stories could be when you're looking past the blockbusters. So it did kind of help engage me in looking at film as an art form. Very formative, I guess, in my journey. With Sasquatch Sunset having the same writers and directors, it's kind of like seeing how much hype it got at Sundance, I'm kind of like, oh, hey, I know those guys, because I actually went to a screening that was like where I believe the writers and directors were there. I remember them doing a Q&A after the screening. So it's kind of like, wait a minute, I know those guys, they're doing another movie that is, getting a lot of buzz. So I just thought that was cool. That's coming April 19th, 2024. And yeah, just heard some good things about it. Looking forward to it. All right. And then opening this weekend, we've got Bob Marley, One Love, Madam Web, and What About Love? Personally, I don't anticipate I will see any of these. Quite honestly. I'm not the biggest fan of biopics. Madam Web is kind of self-explanatory. Right after I've had this whole rant about how we should engage with film, but it's just the subject matter. It's the subject matter, all right? It's not these crazy, clips and headlines and things that are convincing me not to see it. It's just the subject matter. I'm not a fan of musical biopics per se about musical artists. Hard Day's Night was very good. That wasn't a biopic, and that's just commonly hailed as okay. Anyways, I've gone on long enough. I don't need to do another rant. That ship has sailed. But that's it for this week. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your pets, your cats, dogs, pet rocks, your enemies who love movies about the podcast. Still kind of low budget. I'm saving up. I'm hoping to get this into video format at some point. Really hoping to, increase my own skills with this, but hope I didn't ramble too long or leave you disinterested. But I thank you for listening and will now return you to your regularly scheduled life. Bye-bye.